All right, I know everyone's seeing my screen here. So, like I said, we'll kind of really do a deep dive here, mostly focusing on the two different group features on Extempore. So the first is the one that currently everybody has access to in terms of just being kind of those asynchronous groups, more like a discussion board. And then for anyone who's on the webinar that is not yet aware, one of our big initiatives over the last kind of 2 months here, and it just upon popular request, was to develop a kind of new group feature. So the story is Zoom breakout rooms has been a savior for teachers during this time for COVID. But then the one complaint we hear is that teachers can't be in every room and you cannot record every room. So hard to tell if students are actually staying on task, especially when you do drop out of those. So that is essentially what we are looking to solve next. So that feature is currently in beta, kind of proving the concept. But so far things have worked extremely well for the ones testing that out. And we're probably looking to roll that out in about a month for everyone else. So the idea then is once you create those groups, students connect synchronously all through Extempore. And then those recordings are automatically captured. They can be in groups of 2 to 4. And then you can go into the grading on Extempore, just like you do today, to provide that individual grade and the individual feedback. So what I'm going to share first, though, is just the groups as they are today for the asynchronous one. So I'm just going to open up my class. Now I do have 4 of these created already, but we'll create one from scratch. And then I'll jump into one of the other ones that's created that has some student responses in it to give an example there. So we'll just create a new assignment. Now this will be an asynchronous group. And then we'll just bump the day back 1 day. We'll select groups. So now that this is identical to how it'll look for everyone else's account, I'll access my other account that has the beta access for the next example here. So for the asynchronous groups currently, you can determine how many students are in each group. It can be 2 up to 15. Most of the time when we see this being used, groups of 2 is definitely the most common. Right now for the asynchronous groups, audio responses is the only option, so we'll default to that. For the synchronous groups, videos, the current only option, so it will default to the video. So for these asynchronous groups then, the rest of the setup, once you've determined the group sizes, is almost identical, or really it is identical to any other individual type of assignment. So one thing to note, if you do start using the asynchronous groups, and if you have not done so already, is grades and feedback for those groups. They do go to everyone in the group. So 1 grade for the pair, 1 piece of feedback for the pair. Now we are starting to separate that with the synchronous groups. So do expect that to kind of be incorporated in the near future for the asynchronous ones as well. So beyond that though, we'll just hit next. Now for any group assignment, you're not creating a set of tasks. You're really just providing a single task for students to receive and then form that conversation. So we'll just use the example, plan a vacation. And then once you launch the task, that is what automatically starts forming those groups based on the students who are enrolled in your class. So for this class, I do have my test student when I've done the view a student, but then I have 2 true students actually enrolled here. So now if there's ever a reason to move students to different groups, then the next step here would be to just view these rooms. That's going to snap you to the bottom of the assignment page. And then those groups are automatically formed here. So before students do begin responding, you can always manually move them around. So we can just select a different room. In this case, I just have 1, so they are kind of locked into this. Otherwise, you can delete students from these group assignments completely. I know that's a little different with our individual. Currently, all students do have access to that. And with the groups that are beta testing the group functionality right now, because the situation came up where how do you handle absent students? At the beginning, they started deleting them, so they weren't part of this assignment. But then, of course, ran into the situation of the student not actually being absent. So the recommendation that's worked best so far is to just group any absent students into a single room. That way, if they don't end up being absent, you can end up just moving them to a different room right from there. So let me just save this. And then I'm just going to come in and view this as a student and share what that would look like from a student's perspective. I do already have some responses loaded into this one here. So just come to our completed paired assignment. And then we'll go to the room here. So for the asynchronous one, again, it is more like a discussion board. So you're leaving students with a single task. This could still include a video, audio, or image. So this example does just have the text. And then once the students join the room, they see the task. First student in will submit a response. The second student or any other group members, they will receive an email notification that someone else in the group has just participated. So then they're aware, time for them to join, listen to the previous student's response, and then submit their own. So I'll play the first two to give an example. And then I do want to talk through a little further what it would look like if you do incorporate our time limitations, because it is possible to do that for these for the asynchronous groups as well.
Hi, this is Peter Pan from Neverland Travel Agency. I'm looking forward to helping you plan your dream vacation. To get started, please let me know if you'll be traveling with others and who those individuals are, or if you'll be traveling by yourself.
Okay. And then so Stephanie, she received that email notification. Now we can see this is about 4 minutes later. So she listened and then responded to Peter Pan.
Hey, Peter Pan, thanks for helping out. I'm excited to get planning with you to plan our dream vacation here. So I will actually be traveling in a group. I'll be traveling with my family, my mother, my father, as well as my 2 children and my wife.
So then you can see down below, 2 students just continue to go back and forth. Now for all of you as teachers, from the grading tab, when you do view these groups, you do have the ability to participate as well. So you might just act as another participant and focus on the task that was provided, or you might insert your voice here to just point students in a different path, and then they can continue that conversation. So with these groups, it could be something that's open for a day, a week, a month. So really, however long you would like students to continue to engage back and forth with the group members that you formed. So coming back to the top here, again, I do want to explain a little further what this would look like if you did incorporate the time to review, time to respond. So the current one we're viewing, this would be an example of a multiple attempt untimed group. So in this case, students have that ability to just hand select which one they want to play when they want to play it. Now, if this were single attempt and timed, these 2 buttons would be combined. So it would say play all submissions and participate. So the student would just click that one button. That would then automatically force them to listen to the entire dialogue. Once it gets to that final voice memo there, that is when the time to review would begin counting down, and then that time to respond. So if you ever do want to ensure that it is a constant back and forth, that would be the way to ensure that with the single attempt, because with multiple attempts, Peter Pan or Stephanie could have potentially recorded a few times and submit it before they've heard from a partner. I don't think that's something students would really be doing, because at that point, they're really just talking to themselves. But it's just something worth noting there. So as I said, from the grading tab, which is where we'll go next. So just show what that would look like, and then how you can go in and participate as a teacher. So we'll just come to our collaborative groups. And now I have my paired assignment. So for both the asynchronous and synchronous groups, they display identically on the left-hand side once this does load up here. So you'll have as many rooms that were created based on the students who have enrolled. Now you can listen through those dialogues here. You can also delete responses if needed. Otherwise, this is where you would be able to just participate in the room. That'll open that up directly for you. and then you can just interact just like you would be as a student here. And then again, just one more reminder. So for the asynchronous rooms currently, the feedback or grades, which I do not have a rubric included on this one, they are going back to all group members. So even if you did have a group of 5, that's still 1 grade, 1 piece of feedback going back to all of them. Again, for the synchronous groups, that is all individualized grades, individualized feedback. So I was just going to pause for questions. Wendy, let me unmute you here.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I was just wondering, did you say that we can insert our participation and feedback in between the, so after Peter Pan's second response, if there was something that was going off and I wanted to redirect, could I insert where I want, or does it have to be at the very end?
Yeah, so it's based on wherever they're at in the conversation. And the way you actually phrase that, I've never looked at participating as the way to give feedback, but that is actually a really good way to look at it, because it is basically wherever they're at, you're participating as kind of the next in line then. So that would be a pretty good way to provide the feedback, and then they just proceed from there.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And then we have a question in the chat as well.
Mm-hmm. Why does it always partially grade it before I've even listened to the work? Are we seeing, was that something I showed on here, or is that just a general question for your personal account, Jacqueline? Okay, okay. So let me think here. So why is it always so partially graded before I've even looked? Let me see if I have a quick example here that actually shows something like that. So, okay, I see what you're saying. So paired assignment, partially graded. So that would mean here, why this page is taking so long? Okay, so we have provided feedback. You know what, Jacqueline, that's a curious question there, because for this one, it should no longer be partially graded. I have one room. I do not have a rubric. However, grades and feedback in terms of extempore, how we view them, that is grades. So once feedback is provided, that should technically change to graded. So as I can kind of continue, Thomas, would you mind jotting that down so we can relay that to the team and just double check that the logic is correct on graded, ungraded, or partially graded, I should say?
Yeah, I'll actually just copy and paste that into your Slack. You can see after.
Yeah.
We have a question in the Q&A as well. But yeah, we'll definitely circle around on that, Jacqueline. Just to keep on pace with everything else, we'll move on though for now.
Yes. And Jacqueline, what I'll probably ask you for, and I'll follow up with an email, is just maybe I'll jump into your account so I can take a look and just see if I can follow some type of pattern on why that wouldn't display the way you expect it to be. So, all right. And Valerie, that could be a good point in terms of refreshing the browser if it hadn't just updated at that point. But yeah, so we'll move on from that one. Take a look at that later here. Any other questions on the asynchronous groups before I move on?
Yeah, Tara in the Q&A.
Oh. When will this feature for asynchronous be launched? I came in a minute late, and I think you mentioned it was. Oh, so the asynchronous one, this is currently out. This is available for everybody within your accounts. So for all of you, so I'll just do a real quick kind of refresh there. So all you need to do when creating an assignment is just select group. Right now, that does imply that it is an asynchronous group. And then I'll share the synchronous ones here in a second. It's really just a difference of asking you, is this an asynchronous group or synchronous? And then saying yes or no. So awesome, glad that answers that question. So now, and I do feel a lot of you that are here are really looking forward to seeing this synchronous piece. So let me log into this account here. And then I have my synchronous group class. So we'll just add a new assignment here. This will be sync test 3. Now, because this is synchronous, I guess just keep that in mind. Students will be connecting live. So if you provide them with a start time and due time for an entire day, you will need to make sure you're clear to students on when they should be connecting. So based on the beta testers and the feedback we've received, what's really worked best right now is to use this during class time. You might be on Zoom or Google Meet, and then you send students away all at one time to then complete and connect with their group to capture that recording. Oh, is this screen frozen, or I wasn't moving the mouse for a second there?
Yeah, yeah.
It's working now, or it's froze?
Yeah, you're now frozen.
Oh goodness. I thought turning my video off was the solution to never freezing on Zoom, but apparently not. Okay, let me stop the share. Do this again. Okay. And then Thomas, you let me know if that is loading up for you.
Yeah, if you guys were here in the Monday session, we had this blip as well. It didn't happen to the other 3 during the week, so Sam's just the unlucky one here, it seems.
Of course, the person who does most webinars. Is screen moving now, or are we still black?
We are black.
Okay.
It says Sam Slagle has started screen sharing, double-clicked, enter full screen.
Okay. I know last time I did it, it took maybe 30 seconds to a minute after I reshared it. Let me try one more time. And then while we're waiting for that to load, I'm pretty confident that we'll load back up. It seems to figure its issues out by itself each time. So just kind of finish what I was explaining there for the start and due time. So what the teachers that are beta testing the synchronous groups are doing is they're setting the start and due time for maybe a 1 hour time or 1 hour span at the very most. A lot of times it's a shorter, maybe 30 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes. That way you have control.
Here we go.
We're loaded back?
Oh yeah.
Okay, awesome. So by limiting kind of that very short time, and really putting it during your class time, it ensures students cannot enter that room or group prior to when you send them away. And it also allows you to manipulate or adjust those groupings prior to those responses being submitted. So I'll just keep the times there. We'll select group. So then once this does start to get turned on for everybody, you'll just see another option here for, is this a synchronous room? Once we say yes. Now the options for this one are either 2 up to 4 students. And as I mentioned earlier, video will be the default because they will be connecting for a video share, kind of like they would on Google Hangouts or Meet, or I'm sorry, and Zoom. So beyond that, we'll show all parameters. Now for this one, I am going to add a rubric so that we can show the grading per individual. I'm just going to drop one of my saved ones in. And then at the very bottom, you'll notice we no longer have that option to limit time to review, time to respond, or single attempt because students are connecting live here. So there's really no need to have those types of limitations. So we'll hit next. Now, just like we did with the asynchronous group, we're creating a single task for students. Now, I will add an image for this one. So we'll just say, spot differences with your partner. Now we'll launch. And again, identical to the asynchronous, now we can come in and view these rooms. We can move students around prior to responses being submitted. And then Thomas, would you mind sampling this with me and logging in as Sync student?
I don't have my account.
No, I have the account created for you.
Oh, where?
So on the screen here. So if you just want to log into the student portal to Sync student. And then I'll log in as Tony Stark here.
What's normal password?
Yep.
Okay.
All right. So we have our synchronous groups class here. And then Thomas is navigating there at the same time. Thomas, let me know when you have that loaded up. And I will join the waiting room here. So, and again, this is in beta. So this is literally phase 1 of beta. Phase 2, we'll be releasing, I think, around February 9th. So we received some really good feedback. So to kind of explain some of the things to expect, that there will be a box over here that's going to let students know who's online and connected to the waiting room so that they're aware that another student's ready to join.
Yep, so I'm in waiting room, whatever.
You're in the waiting room. Okay, perfect. So Thomas, let's you and I join then at the same time here. There we go. So now here's an example, 2-person room. Right now, the room limit is 10 minutes for the recording because we are being charged with all of these recordings here. So we do need to set a limit to make sure students aren't just leaving their cameras on and walking away and not staying on task here. So it is automatically recording in that phase 2. That's another update we'll be making, is just making sure that it's very clear to students as they join, so that that screen will actually get grayed out. It'll say recording has now begun, and then they proceed from there. So currently the task is at the bottom here. That will be adjusted to the top, making sure it's more clear on where students can locate that. But otherwise, we're here, we're recording. So if anyone's ever done a Zoom breakout room, this is very similar, but you're recording all students. So there's not as much of a need for you to just drop in and oversee them, because you can always come back to that recording afterwards and make sure students were actually on task. So I'm just gonna submit here, meaning we are done with this assignment. Now that video begins processing and being sent to the grading. Now for these synchronous groups, we are using a third party to kind of process those and then merge those videos into a single recording. So it can take slightly longer than any other recording types on Extempore, but we do make sure we leave a message for you, letting you know that it is in the works and processing, and we're yet to have one that does not display eventually here. So we have our sync test 3. Go. So we are preparing the room recording. Please note processing times may vary, a few minutes to several hours. So that is all based on this third-party service that we're using and the volume of just recordings that they're capturing at that time. So, and that's what we've seen and our beta testers have seen, is some of them, they're here very quickly in minutes. Some have taken upwards of an hour, but again, we're yet to see one that does not process and then get sent over. While that is processing, are there any questions? It looks like you got some in the chat. Jacqueline, so again, that phase 2 is February 9th is what we're shooting for right now. And we're very close. I would say by end of February is when you can expect that on for everyone. And then even once phase 2 does get launched, we are going to kind of open up the beta to additional users who would like to give this a try. So that this first beta group, they've definitely helped us find some things that are really gonna help. And they've just been outstanding about providing that feedback and knowing that they're running into some issues, but knowing that we can take care of those and fix them as well. So, but yeah, so really what I'm sharing now is just proving the concept of we can have students connect synchronously, recordings can get captured. This can all be happening all at one time. And Serena, I see you have a question. Let me unmute you real quick.
Hi.
Hi.
So this is so very cool, and I'm curious about how you envision if I have a class that's meeting from all different places but synchronously on Zoom,
Mhm.
I would have them stay on the Zoom. I would pair them ahead of time,
Mhm.
unlike breakout rooms. And then what begins the recording? Do they begin talking to one another as you did? And then,
Yeah, so just by them joining the room, the recording begins automatically.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that is actually a limitation of this third party, is that there's no ability to have a click to start recording, because that's part of just their functionality is once it's joined, recording begins.
I
So
think that's terrific, just for the
great.
record. Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Yeah. And then so what happens now is and this will be fixed in the phase 2, but right now one student could potentially join that room and their recording begins. Now they might be sitting there for 3-4 minutes or maybe 10 minutes if their partner never joins. So that's kind of the reason why we'll be adding kind of a little status mark to show who's in your group, who's online and in the waiting room, so that we can help decrease our costs of a student sitting silently in a room for a few minutes and really help allow those students to join at the same time.
Right. And the teacher doesn't have we're not dropping in. We're just saying, okay, for the next 10 minutes, you're going to go off, you're going to join your room, do your thing, and then it'll end and you'll pop right back into our class.
Yep, exactly.
Okay. Thank you so much.
No problem. No problem. And then with that, let me mute that. Oh, you're good. So as soon as a student does join a room, if you were ever wanting to just kind of confirm, since you don't have that ability to kind of drop in, but if you do want to confirm that they're in the room, right now you can actually come to grading. And while they're in the room, it's going to show just like this, where a student shows something as published. And that's because I chose to publish grades immediately, but it will show kind of a record here and that something is being prepared once they enter the room. So you know they're in there and that something will be received eventually then. Let me refresh again, see if it's going to show up here. Okay, not yet. And let's see. Yeah, and any other questions? I'm going to fill some time a little bit while I let this load. Otherwise, if there aren't any currently, I do want to pull up the help article. And this kind of beta test group has been really helpful because by the time this is a live feature for everybody, the help articles are going to be very nice because I've been able to kind of adapt them based on each piece of feedback I'm receiving here. So do want to give a quick example here of if we did have a group of 4 students, what that would look like. Otherwise, kind of listing out the limitations. So right now for this current phase, it is just available for laptop and desktop. We did make quite a bit of headway on making this work for the mobile app as well, but we're not going to include that in phase 2 because we want to just iron out everything kind of laptop, desktop first, and then we'll jump into the mobile app side of things. And then 2 things to kind of be aware of in terms of which service you're using. So we have noticed with Zoom users, and it does seem to be part of one of the more recent Zoom updates, is that their camera or microphone, it fights with our synchronous groups. It's been a very easy thing to solve in terms of students generally just need to mute their either camera or microphone on Zoom, and then they're absolutely fine on Extempore. We have had a lot less kind of conflicts of that camera microphone with Google Hangouts, where many have had no problem having students camera microphone on both sides. Now, when they are doing the task, of course, always recommended to mute themselves on the Google Hangout or Meet. Otherwise, you're picking up both on your end. But it has worked very well since most of you are on class on one of these anyways, and then to send them away to something like this. Let's see here. And then, so the article here on moving students. So I kind of talked through these, but kind of reasons to move them around, odd number of students, attendance, if you want students working with others with varying skills. Now, currently, and this is for both groups, once one student either joins a room for the synchronous or records even one prompt or one recording for the asynchronous, it does currently lock all the rooms in terms of being able to move students. So I'm not sure if that's phase 2 or phase 3 of the beta, but what we will be doing is only locking that one room. So then all the other rooms can still be flexible and you can move students around, because that's kind of one of the situations that came up during the beta is teacher would get everything prepared. They were all ready for class. And then one of their students didn't follow instructions and they joined the room and teacher wanted to actually move a few students before it started. So what's been working though for that is just making sure the start times in the future. That way students can't access it in advance and you do have control, but we will be adapting that slightly to make sure that just is a little more flexible. And Serena, do you have another question, or I see the hand up now. I'm not sure if it's still from before though. Oh, thank you. And then let's cross our fingers here. I'm hoping this recording shows up now. Hoping this longer load means it's going to be there. Oh, not quite. Okay, so still waiting here. Now for both students, once this recording does show up, you're going to see the same recording for both. But the reason why you have kind of two versions of it is because that's how you're grading or giving the feedback to each individual underneath here. So let me refresh that. Yes, Wendy?
Can students go through, I mean, obviously they can't watch it until it shows up. It's been processed and shows up, but I know that they can view our feedback or listen to our feedback. Can they actually, is it possible to replay before we've given feedback?
Let's see. I don't believe. Oh no yet. So yes, it would be, but it's just kind of what we're seeing here. They might submit and it might not have processed immediately. So it's just that slight lag time of when they would be able to access it. Because like I know currently with every other kind of recording type that we do, once a student records, they can stop and listen back immediately. Right. But with this third-party service, because technically each student, they are being recorded from their own camera and their own microphone, but this service is basically merging that into a single file. So that's kind of the reason it does take a little bit longer, but it also ensures that there's, like, say two students are talking and they don't have headsets on, it never picks up the audio from the other student. So it's all very clear, but that's just a lot of the stuff that's kind of happening behind the scenes for this one. So to answer the question, it's yes, but students might not see it immediately.
Right. Now, I'm just thinking in terms of if I hadn't gotten around to actually grading it and giving feedback, the next day in class, however, we could sort of select one of the groups to sort of assess whatever it was we wanted to assess, their content or their process or their whatever.
Sure.
And build on that even before it's been officially graded.
Right. Yeah.
I don't like to show grades to the whole class, but I do like to share other classmates' work.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So in that case, you just, when you're setting it up and when it asks when will students see their grades, you would just want to leave that as immediate, which doesn't mean they're seeing their grades immediately. It just means they have, so right here, this is showing as published, meaning they can see the contents, which in this case is just the video once that processes, because we have not provided any grades or feedback yet.
Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. All right. One more refresh here. Hoping this one loads up. Otherwise, what I might do here is just maybe jump into one of my other groups. With one of the other trainings I did here, Actually had one of the other teachers join the group, but one of the other teachers did not hear the instructions. So then she logged into the account that the other teacher was in and kind of threw things off here. So I guess with that being said, this is not a perfect example because as soon as she joined, she kind of hijacked our room and it just stole the show. But I would never see a student logging into another student's account while they're inside of a room. So that was a pretty unique case. And now that I'm seeing this again, this isn't a great example because we're not going to see the two students side by side there. So let me go back. I'm hoping now this will process. So we do have to stay patient. And we do have a call scheduled next week with this service to kind of explain our use case, because they really built a product that other companies can use to innovate. And I think we've kind of used it in a way that they never saw it being used, especially with the case of you teachers are on Zoom or Google Hangouts, and you're sending students away to another service just like it. So in their eyes, I think they kind of saw themselves being used by itself, not hand in hand with the Zoom or Google Hangouts. So we do have some calls scheduled to just work with them on what else they can suggest to us to really keep improving what this partnership has started to be. Okay. And then if it's not loaded here, okay, I'm gonna pivot to one other thing, and then hopefully that loads up. So, and I would love to get everyone's feedback on this. So a student portfolio has also been something that we're working on. Now, our synchronous groups, that's definitely the priority right now, and to get that pushed out. So this is a very rough kind of example of a student portfolio, but it'd be great to get feedback, making sure like this is what you guys would want it to look like and the flow kind of makes sense here. So let me just come in, and then we're going to go in as Tony Stark. So this is all our demo environment. So this isn't something anyone else would be able to see right now. But then the idea would be students have a portfolio of work. Currently, how Extempore works is when you do archive a class, that's when student loses that work, so it doesn't follow them year to year. So with this, students would be able to star some of their best work, and then they can always access that starred work, as well as anything that is previously active within the class they're in. So it looks like I chose a student that does not have what I need. Let me try this one here. Okay, I know it's kind of an explosion of colors, but the colors, they are kind of color coding which assignment is which, but also with this example, this is how many current classes the student I'm sharing is enrolled in. So for most of you, it's probably one class and not as much information. But now we can see right here, so based on what the rubric was, kind of averaging out, and these are all rubrics I've used and reused. And then as we adjust, let's see, so now let's see all of our single attempt assignments. Now that'll snap. Maybe we turn that off. Now we want to see all of our multiple attempts. So then when student enrolls in next year's class, that new teacher will be able to actually see the student's portfolio, see the work that they've done from last year that they chose to star, and then teachers will also have that ability to star the work as well. So now below, if students want to review, and I guess before I get to that piece, students will have the ability to send this portfolio. We're probably going to set a kind of a time limitation where that link expires, so that it's just not public out there for too long. But it would basically take a snapshot of what this portfolio is today, and then that's what's being sent to maybe a parent or somebody else. So we'll just click here. Now students can see their answer, they can review the question, any feedback that was provided from the teacher, and then what kind of grade they received. So I'll pause there. Does it make sense to everyone? Do you see a good use for this? Is there anything we're missing? Yeah, this is a good time to do it because we're still at early stages with this portfolio project. And you don't need to suggest having better colors because we know that.
I do have a question for, question from Wendy again.
Yes.
The Q&A.
Collaboration with Avant assessments. Thomas, would you be, since you've been kind of lead on that, kind of explain Avant assessment? I can show everybody where those are located, but if you don't mind expanding on just what that partnership is now and the vision moving forward.
Yeah, and here actually, Wendy, I try to unmute you. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. You wanna, if you don't mind, kind of expanding on that a bit, what you're looking for?
Oh, well, I just was aware that you had begun some sort of collaboration with them, and we were using them. We were looking into using the STAMP test for evaluating our student proficiency, and then things got in the way. So I was just wondering what that collaboration entails and how it's integrated, or to the extent to which it is integrated.
Yeah, so we're kind of in the first phase with them, and really just, to be honest with you, testing the waters. So at this point, we are their official, not official platform to do any sort of STAMP practice on. To help people get started, we have a handful of languages. So Sam, if you don't mind, you can click on the little button down there to show them off.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think it's Mandarin simplified, French and Spanish for now. But yeah, it's, like I said, very, very infant stages. So
and to address the question, just how integrated it is, Wendy. So all they're doing is they have an Extempore account. They're creating content from their Avant assessments on Extempore, and then we're just using our send a colleague feature. So all of the tasks down here are just importable tasks because they've used our send a colleague link to then provide that and share that with anyone who wants to use it.
Okay, so basically, whether or not you intend to use their STAMP test, if you have an Extempore account, theoretically, one would have access to this as practice.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, because they lack just having something that students can use throughout the year to practice for in preparation for it.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that better answers it. Like, just like you can use Extempore for AP practice, you can use Extempore to practice for the STAMP test.
Because we've always been kind of that conduit of we have the technology, but at first we needed you guys as teachers, and we made it hopefully pretty easy to load in content. But now as we keep growing, we're going to start forming more communities and more partnerships like this, and start loading up Extempore with that content, because that's definitely a request, just to make things easier and allow teachers to collaborate more easily as well.
And so is there any way that one could use Extempore for the actual administration of a STAMP assessment, or is that getting ahead of things?
I think that'd be stepping on their toes in the partnership.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sam, do you mind talking about like what we're doing with MDE?
Yeah, that's what my next call is, so I can kind of talk a little bit about it. So they have, as they do their syllabi literacy, they have their different graders. Thomas, what details are you looking for? We've talked so much with MDE, and I have my next prep call with them after this, which is really good.
So, Wendy, you said you kind of went into some roadblocks with that, but what we're seeing is Extempore is being used to run state assessments for their seal of biliteracy. The first one that we've worked with is here in Minnesota, the Minnesota Department of Education. So this spring, we are the platform that they're conducting all of their more so less commonly taught languages. So Tamil, Arabic, Ojibwe, Dakota, Hmong, all sorts of different languages. So yes, you can use this as a means to do some sort of seal by literacy test.
Right, but just the official one that Avant provides.
Yes, Jacqueline, I don't know, because it varies by district, honestly, and by state. So there are many different means of achieving the seal of biliteracy. You can get it through the AP test as well, I believe, or even the WIDA access exam for ESL students. So it just varies.
And I'm just seeing Lisa's comments as well for the portfolios. I really like that idea, Lisa, for their students to be sharing with potential employers, colleges. I mean, that ability to show them the level of proficiency.
That would help colleges a lot.
So yes, I really like that idea.
Because right now there's universities that, you know, I know, like the University of Minnesota, you have to send in a flash drive of your responses to some questions, and if they could just hit a button and send all of their work, that would be probably a blessing for the professors as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hey, look at that.
Finally.
Recording showed up. We stalled long enough. All right, let me just play this back just so everyone can see this, since we did talk about the synchronous groups quite a bit. So quick example here. Oh, don't tell me. Okay, so I should be showing up right here. So that is something.
Yep, so I'm in waiting. I was in early.
Oh, were you? Okay. So this was the example I provided everyone earlier. So right now, before we would go, pause it, before we get that fixed, it does open the door for a student to be able to join early, and that recording starts. So that's where we'll add the little status bar, letting students know who is online so that they know when to join. We also will not be allowing a single student to join actually either. So they will need to have at least 2 students online for that join room button to even display. So it'll be grayed out and then it'll turn blue once there's at least 2 active members ready to join. So now here's an example, 2-person room. Right now, the room limit is 10 minutes for the recording because we are being charged with all of these recordings here. So we do need to set a limit to make sure students aren't just leaving their cameras on and walking away and not staying on task here. So it is automatically recording in that. Okay, so I'll pause there. And then for this one, I would probably give Tony Stark the feedback of let your partner speak a little bit more so that I can listen to them as well. But yeah, from here, we're giving that feedback or grades. Good work. Submit that feedback. And then let's see, where's my Tony Stark account? Too many tabs open. Let me close this, close this. There's Tony Stark. Okay, so let's refresh this and then show how that's reviewed. So with the synchronous rooms, as soon as that due date hits, that is when a room would be considered closed. So that's how you're limiting that. Now we have our sync test 3. Now, just like it looks today, for students to be able to review, play it back, just like that. Thomas, actually, you know what? I'll just log into your account. For the question that came up earlier, I'm just going to run a quick test here and see, because I did not grade Thomas's. I want to see if that student recording is showing up, as I had mentioned earlier. So test. Was it sync testing? Oh, sync student. Sync student. Okay. So there's our sync test 3. There we go. So yes, that does work as the question was asked earlier. So no grades or feedback have been provided, but students can come in and review once that has been processed. And then one other thing, so in a couple weeks, it's been pretty common request as well. So as I'm sure most of you know, right now the due date on Extempore for all individual type of assignments, that just relates to when the assignment is considered late. So students can currently always complete outside of the due date. It will be labeled in red as late. So in a couple weeks, we will be adding into your account preferences here the ability to not accept late work. What that will then do is disable the past due tab for students. So as soon as an assignment goes from from active to past due, it's no longer available for that student. So that the teachers that do want to prevent students submitting after can do so. And then the other thing that kind of solves is a lot of times if a student is late, you actually do want them to redo, but you want to control when that actually happens. So in that case, all of your other students that have completed it on time, that's great. It's going to show up for them inside of their completed folder. So then at any point, you can just reopen the start and due date so that this assignment's available again. And then it's only going to show for those students who have not completed it, because it'll remain in the completed tab for all the students who did it on time. So it'll kind of allow, rather than the current solution is copy an assessment, maybe assign a student to a separate class. It's a little messy to give an individual student a certain task like that. So it will help with that a little bit as well. Yes, Wendy. Yeah, I know, because when you would think, and I'm sure a lot of other systems teachers are used to, when you set a due date, that is probably a hard due date that cannot be submitted after. And I don't think we did the best job of when that is selected, showing that that's how it's going to flow. So I do during almost every training make sure as I share the due date, kind of explain that. So I'm happy to see that feature coming soon though. Especially because of that other piece that it solves of potentially providing that assignment to the student when you're ready. Let's see here. Okay, I kind of wrapping things up. Oh, Jacqueline, when Google Classroom is selected, how does that make a difference in how? So Jack, this is it's not yet live. So we put that on hold to finish up the Synchronous Groups project. And I guess one of the main reasons is the main benefit of the Google Classroom integration is kind of year to year as you're just getting restarted with your account on Extempore. Because once you have that integrated, you click sync with Google Classroom, it will actually create all of your classes on Extempore and roster all of your students from Google Classroom on Extempore. So it basically sets your account up for you. And then you just need to start providing the assignments. As those assignments are being created on Extempore, students can just click on them right within your Google Classroom calendar. Yes, that'll be another really nice one to have, but that's kind of, again, why we kind of put on hold, because rolling that out in the middle of the school year with a lot of teachers who you have your classes, you have your students assigned, there could be some potential hiccups there of all of a sudden you have duplicate classes, duplicate students. So we do want to be cautious, but 100% that will be here before the next school year, because that'll really be the time to take advantage of it. Any other questions, feedback on the student portfolio? Just, yeah, and anything else you want to see or provide today? Wendy, for the Canvas integration, so we're yeah, I guess you know that we're integrating with Canvas. So what you're thinking there is, so our current LMS integrations, it's called 1.1 or LTI 1.1. the new version of LTI integrations is LTI 1.3. So that is something that we do need to tackle at some point and develop that LTI 1.3. And then, as I'm sure you're assuming, it'll work very similar to how I just explained Google Classroom, where you'll no longer need to link an external tool in Extempore. You'll be able to roster those students. They won't need to have separate logins. So yes, that is definitely on the list as well. And then that is for 8 different LMSs as well. So if anyone isn't using Google Classroom, let me pull up the list real quick. So our LMS integrations. So Canvas, Blackbaud, Moodle, Schoology, D2L, Blackboard, and Talent LMS. So when we do tackle that project for LTI 1.3, that will apply to all the LMS integrations that we offer. Yeah, Wendy, no problem at all. I'm processing the portfolio. I'm still trying to do the same. The developers just let me start testing it out and looking at it this week. So yeah, and we'll kind of keep sharing it out and collecting feedback, but please do send me an email if you have any thoughts or ideas on what ways to use it, things we're missing, things to include. As we would love to hear it. So. Yes, no problem, Valerie. Thank you. Sorry to, you know what, I've had my video muted this whole time because I didn't want to freeze things up. So I'll come on now and say hello to everybody. Well, thank you, everyone. So if there are no more questions, you know where to find me or anyone else on the team. But do keep those suggestions coming for us. I'm doing a lot in terms of I'm doing a lot of these mock-ups. So I created a design like this. Now I get to see the developer put my design in place. I think mine was a little cleaner, so I'm expecting to clean things up a little bit more, but all the feedback I'm receiving, that is my literature that I put on my spreadsheets, and I check them off as soon as I incorporate them on some of these new designs.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you, Sarinda. Take care. Have a great weekend, everybody. And I see that you like the colors. Okay, maybe we'll keep the colors. All right, thank you, Pam. We appreciate it. We couldn't do it without you guys as teachers, so we're in this together. All right. Jacqueline, looks like you're the last one, so have a great weekend. Thank you again, and thank you for the questions, and don't hesitate to reach out. Take care.